expect them, to be slightly less than this time last year for the year as a whole. They probably fell back a little bit in the last quarter of the year because the Irish farmer was just competing too strongly and given too high a price. The live exporter wasn't able to compete as much, which is really unusual. It's usually the other way around. But again, huge demand across Europe for cattle live, so that's kept the thing up too. So a lot of positives.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef podcast for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan and I'm joined by Pearse Kelly, Teagasc Head of Drystock, to reflect on 2025 and plan for 2026. Pearse, you're very welcome. When you look at 2025, what are some of the key highlights for beef farmers?
The key one is the numbers. You look at the number of cattle that are being killed here, and across Europe and across the world. So the big thing, I suppose, is that nobody expected the drop in numbers that we're seeing, either here or across the world. There was some indication of it this time last year. But I mean, if you stand back and you look at the Board BIA predictions, and they were only going on the best information they had this time last year and into January of 2025, they were predicting a kill of 70 to 90,000 back in 2025 versus 2024. That was revised upwards during the year. They were expecting that to be a shortage in the first half of the year, the first two quarters. They expect for the third and fourth quarter of the year that the kill was going to rise back up, but that rise back up didn't come. In fact, it got tighter again. And they revised that deficit of 70 to 90,000 to over the summer there. They said it'll be back by about 150,000. And in the end, now what we're hearing is that the prime kill, or the kill for this year, is likely to be back by 200,000. So that's a big jump from the 70 to 90 that was being predicted. So that then obviously led into prices that we've never seen before on the beef side. It's kind of set a new norm in terms of where beef price is. We're seeing prices of €7 to €8 a kilo, and then that obviously then had a huge feedback along the chain to people who are selling live cattle, either weanlings or stores, and we've seen huge jumps in the price people are getting for cattle in the mart, either as finished but also as younger cattle as well. And you were in some cases for those weanlings, you were seeing a doubling in price versus this time last year. Heavier animals, you're seeing a huge jump as well. So that, I suppose, is some of the big highlights. The other, on the downside, on the positive, then we've had really good weather. I suppose on the downside, worryingly, blue tongue, we've been watching it all summer in the UK. Afraid that it across the water here. We felt we had got away with it for 2025, and that the weather got colder. We know that for blue tongue to transmit, it needs slightly warmer weather than what we'd have here in the winter. It needs to get more summer weather, above 12 degrees Celsius. And unfortunately, as we all now know, we didn't get out of the year. Doesn't seem to be having an impact on trade yet, or on prices yet, and hopefully it can be contained. But I mean, I suppose the highlights, Catherine, as your question was, shortage of cattle here, shortage of cattle across the world, leading to a huge increase in the price both of finished cattle, but then that's feeding back along the chain also to people who are selling weanlings out of suckler herds or selling stores. Or we didn't see a big jump in the calf price in 2025. Because the beef price is only starting to rise when a lot of those calves are on the move. Live exports have kept up. We expect them, to be slightly less than this time last year for the year as a whole. They probably fell back a little bit in the last quarter of the year because the Irish farmer was just competing too strongly and given too high a price. The live exporter wasn't able to compete as much, which is really unusual. It's usually the other way around. But again, huge demand across Europe for cattle live, so that's kept the thing up too. So a lot of positives.
You mentioned there the Board BIA data, and I suppose they're highlighting again that the national kill will be back 200,000 head in 2026. What impact do you think that reduction is going to have?
that's going to again, it's going to sustain the price. We suspect all the experts on this, Catherine. I'm by no means an expert on beef price, but I mean, if you listen to all the people, our own economists, you listen to some of the kind of the Rupert Claxtons of this world, and that we had at the beef conference, they're all saying, with this shortage of cattle, with the cattle numbers being back, they expect, as you say, they expect for 2026 the kill to be something similar to 2025. So that's you can look at that two ways. The reduction can't keep happening, or we'll end up at zero. But I mean, where we're saying is that the the average kill that we saw for this year is not going. What Borbia is projecting for 2026 is to be something similar in 2026 versus 2025. So that has to be positive from a numbers. And the only thing you have to be careful of is that the price of beef isn't all set by the price of cattle here. It's set very much by the supply across Europe. But again, if you look at Orbea projections for the rest of Europe for into 2026, the vast majority of beef producing countries in 2026 in Europe are going to be producing less beef than they did in 2025.
And you mentioned the high beef prices that was paid Pearse in 2025. Overall, how will the financial performance look, do you think?
Well, with the National Farm Survey, the Teagasc National Farm Survey comes out every December. So there, a couple of weeks ago at this stage, they came out and they showed what they put projections for profitability. And the way the Farm Survey looks at the two big groups it looks at are suckling enterprises and then the cattle finishing enterprises. And what they're saying is, if you go back to the 2024 on average net margin profitability basically per hectare, they were saying in 2024, so suckler farms on average made basically €100 per hectare. And what they're estimating based on the prices those farmers got this year and input costs didn't rise over 2024 based on the extra price they're getting for beef cattle this year and for weanlings and that, they're expecting that €100 to rise to over €800. So that's a significant jump. And in 1 year, and really is great to see for those suckler farmers who have stuck with suckling that they're getting their just rewards now, they're getting their payback. On the cattle finishing enterprises is also a jump, not as big because they've had to go back out, especially in the back end, and replace cattle that they sold and pay those higher prices we talked about earlier. So the net margin that they were getting in 2024 was 276, and the National Farm Survey is expecting that to jump to 457 in 2025 on average. Now, that's an average. For some people, it'll be a lot higher than that because they're at higher stocking rates than the average and a higher output overall. And we expect calf to beef enterprises also to jump. So it's really positive, yeah, for 2025. And then they're kind of saying for 2026, who knows what's going to happen in 2026? We don't know. We couldn't put this time last year the way beef prices rise, but based on the headwinds that are there at the moment, based on predictions on input prices, and the big one that drives it on the beef side is meal price, and we're not seeing any significant rise in meal price coming based on cereal prices that are there at a world level because there's just an oversupply of cereals all across the world with no sign of that going to change in 2026. If the beef price holds, which everyone expects it will, a National Farm Survey is saying that we can expect margins in 2026 to be for suckling farms to be almost as good as they were, every bit as good as they were this year, which is excellent to see. And for finishing farms, they might even rise a little bit because some of those finishing farms didn't get the full advantage. They killed in January, February, March of 2025. If they're killing again in January, February, March of 2026, they're going to get that rise that kind of came throughout 2025. Now, who knows what they'll have to pay for store animals, and that's something they'll have to keep an eye on.
Overall, very positive figures there, Pearse. You mentioned at the recent beef webinar that dairy sire male calves, they've decreased by 60,000 head and calf exports were up by 12%. For farmers considering buying calves now in spring 2026, what advice have you?
Yeah, so listen, we all know, Catherine, that the calf price is going to be higher in 2026. There's no doubt about that in 2025 that they're going to get advantage of this rise in the price of beef too and the rise in the store price. And as I said earlier, there was a little bit of a rise in 2025, but not to the level that we're probably going to see in 2026. And that's great for dairy farmers who are selling those calves and that. But what we be saying to the beef farmers who are buying them is, and the advice we've always been, is just do your sums. Just be careful, that you're buying a calf in there now in spring 2026. A lot of them won't be slaughtered until at least until the end of 2027, or into a lot more of them will be into the spring of 2028 or later. Some of them mightn't be killed till the autumn of 2028, which is a long way away from now, kind of, a long way away from next spring. And we don't know what's going to happen in the meantime. So listen, people want to keep numbers up. People that are in a calf to beef system will want to make sure they continue to buy calves, and they'll be getting good price for cattle. But what I'm saying is do your sums and do your figures, and we can do up figures and we can tell people what it costs to rear these calves and all that. But at the end of the day, you really need to do your own figures. And I would say first port of call is sit down with your advisor, and it's never been a better year to do a profit monitor. And do a profit monitor for 2025 and just do a bit of sensitivity analysis. Say, well, right, that's grand. If I continue to get this beef price, but I have to pay this or this for calf price, what does that mean to my bottom line? Because what you don't want to be doing is getting great beef prices, but then handing it all out in the calf price too. And that's it really, Catherine, yeah.
That's great, Pearse. And I suppose for listeners looking to the year ahead, what are some of the key highlights that you're looking forward to?
In terms of, I suppose, within Teagasc, we have our Future Beef program, which is a demonstration farm program for 2020 for suckler farmers, and we have our Dairy Beef 500. We've some really good farm walks coming up on those farms around the country. I won't go through them all here, but people will see them advertised as they're coming along. Especially over the summertime, we had really big numbers attending those walks, and people really appreciated the information that they were getting on those walks this year. Because those farms show warts and all. They show fully their financial performance. They show what they're making. They show what's working, what's not working. There's a lot of those farms have red clover in, white clover. They're pushing the boat out in terms of the systems. A lot of them now are putting in more and more technology on those farms to reduce labour, and that's becoming an important aspect of those farms. People want to, especially part-time farmers, want to see, well, how can I cut back on some of this workload that's happening on farms? So we'll be highlighting those. We also plan on having the open day in Grange. Grange's turn this year to have the big open day. The date that tentatively that has been set for that at this stage is the 1st of July. So again, we're a lot of new ideas for that open day, and we look forward to meeting a lot of people at the open day.
That's great, Pearse. And we'd just like to wish all the listeners a very happy and safe year ahead, and all the best in 2026.
Absolutely, Catherine, and just want to thank you for running the Beef podcast week in, week out, every week of the year for the whole year, and all the listeners to the podcast. Very happy and safe Christmas too.
That's all for this year, and my thanks to Pearse for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates for our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.